Hello everyone. So we are done with unit 1. Now we'll start unit 2. That is, unit 2 is all about government. So if you want, you can pause the video and look at the small pictures that have been given on the left side. Sorry. So here a small quote has been given. A cartoonist's business in a democracy is to exercise his right to criticize, ridicule, find fault with political leaders through cartoons, by R.K. Lakshman. So here our chapter begins. Chapter 3 of 6th class Polity ncert. What is government? You must have heard the government mentioned several times. In this chapter you will learn about what a government is and the important role it plays in our lives. What do governments do? How do they decide what to do? What is the difference between different types of government, such as monarchies and democracies? Read more and find out. So here you can look at the small news headlines. Government sought to protect rights of unorganized workers, and detailed plan to tackle such soon, says government. Government fixes prices of onions, says no shortage in market. Supreme Court can have 5 more judges. Government for revamping coal and power sector. Over 15,000 villages declared scarcity hit by government. So this blue box, in this blue box it is written as, look at the newspaper headlines above and list the different kinds of activities that the government is reported to be doing in these newspaper headlines. If you want, you can do it on your own. So you can make a bullet point and point them as 1, 2, 3 and 4. Isn't this a wide range of activities? The question has been asked. What do you think government is? Discuss in class. If you want, you can also write 3 to 4 lines. What do you think that a government is? So now we'll start from here. Every country needs a government to make decisions and get things done. These can be decisions about where to build roads and schools, or how to reduce price of onions when they get too expensive, or ways to increase the supply of electricity. The government also takes into action on many social issues. For example, it has several programs to help the poor. It does other important things such as running postal and railway services. So what we got to know from the first page is that in this chapter we will learn about what a government is and the important role it plays in our lives. So we'll read more to find this out. Let's resume. The government also has the job of protecting the boundaries of the country and maintaining peaceful relations with other countries. It is responsible for ensuring that all its citizens have enough to eat and have good health facilities. When there are natural disasters like the tsunami or an earthquake, it is government that mainly organizes aid and assistance for the affected people. If there is dispute, or if someone has committed a crime, you find people in a court. Courts are also a part of the government. Perhaps you are wondering how governments manage to do all this, and why is it necessary for them to do so? When human beings live and work together, there needs to be some amount of organization so that decisions can be made. So here at the left side, it is a picture of the Supreme Court, and this is a picture of a train of Indian Railways, and here it is the symbol of Bharat Petroleum. Here, these are some examples of institutions that are part of the government: Supreme Court, Indian Railways and Bharat Petroleum. Okay, if you want, you can do this small activity. That can you list 3 things about the government which have not been mentioned here? So let's resume. Some rules have to be made that apply to everyone. For example, there is a need to control resources and protect the territory of the country, so people can feel secure. Governments do this on behalf of their people by exercising leadership, taking decisions and implementing these among the people living in their territory. Levels of government. So we'll discuss the next thing is about levels of government. Now that you know that the government is responsible for so many different things, can you think of how it manages to do all these? The government works at different levels: at the local level, at the level of state, and at the national level. The local level means in your village, town or locality. The state level would mean that which covers an entire state like Haryana or Assam, and the national level relates to the entire country. See the maps, okay? We'll look at the map below. First, let's finish this out. Later in this book, You will read about how local level government functions, and when you go into the next few classes, you will learn about how government function at the state and central levels. So here, India map has been given. So now this has been divided into Ladakh and J&K both, and also this section into Telangana. Okay, so you can look at this map, have a glance at it, and let's move on to our next page. Here, administrative divisions of India have been given. You can zoom this out. You can look as here it has been Kupwara, Bandipur, Kishtwar, Rajouri, Poonch, Jammu. You look at Ashoknagar, like Hind, Sarguja, Mandla, Udaipur, Chittorgarh. Okay, so in this manner, India has been divided into many administrative divisions. It has been also mentioned what do these things means, CEP and all that. If you want, you can have a glance at this map. Okay. Below in note section it has also been given that Telangana became the 29th state of India on 2nd June 2014 after the reorganization of the state of Andhra Pradesh. So laws and government. So till now what we've learned, the government protects the country's boundaries, maintains peaceful relations, ensures citizens have access to food and health facilities, organizes aid during natural disasters, and handles disputes in courts. It also exercises leadership. Takes decisions, and implements rules for its citizens. For example, it includes Supreme Court, Indian Railways, Bharat Petroleum. Government works at different levels. Okay, at local level, state, and national level. So it is a 3-tier structure, right? So 3-tier structure. So later in this book, we'll read about how local level government functions, means in the upcoming chapters or in the upcoming 7th, 8th or 9th class NCERT, I think. And when you go into the next few classes, you will learn about how government function at state and central level. So without law, government's power to make decisions is not of much use. Okay. Another form of government is monarchy. So let's resume. Laws and the government. Government make laws and everyone who lives in the country has to follow these. This is the only way government can function. Just like the government has the power to make decisions, similarly it has the power to enforce its decisions. For example, there is a law that says that all persons driving a motor vehicle must have a license. Any person caught driving a vehicle without a license can either be jailed or fined a large sum of money. Without these laws, the government's power to make decisions is not of much use. Okay, in discuss section it has been given that think of an example of another law. What do you think it is important that people abide by this law? So in addition to any actions that government can take, there are also steps that people can take if they feel that a particular law is not being followed. If a person feels, for example, that they were not hired for a job because of their religion or caste, he or she may approach the court and claim that the law is not being followed. Okay, the court can then give orders about what should be done. Now we'll discuss about the types of government. If you look at this right picture, What do you think? This is a picture of who? This is a picture of a king. Might be a king. Who we don't know. So who gives the government, the types of government, who gives the government this power to make decisions and enforce laws? The answer to this question depends on the type of government there is in a country. In a democracy, it is the people who give the government this power. They do this through elections in which they vote for particular persons and elect them. Once elected, these persons form the government. In a democracy, the government has to explain its actions and defend its decision to the people. Another form of government is monarchy. Monarch, that is king or queen, has the power to make decisions and run the government. Monarch may have a small group of people to discuss matters with, but the final decision-making power remains with the monarch. Unlike in a democracy, kings and queens do not have to explain their actions or defend the decisions they take. Okay, so this is a picture of a king, which we don't have to bother. If you want, you can pause for a second and look at this discuss section and brainstorm on your own. So let's discuss about democratic governments. India is a democracy. This achievement is a result of a long and eventful struggle of the Indian people. There are other places in the world where people have also struggled to have democracies. You now know that the main feature of democracy is that people have the power to elect their leaders. So in a sense, a democracy is ruled by the people. The basic idea is that people rule themselves by participating in the making of these rules. Okay? So democratic governments in our times are usually referred to as representative democracies. Okay? So in representative democracy, people do not participate directly but instead choose their representatives through an election process. These representatives meet and may. We'll resume from the next page. Let's look at this box snippet, votes for women, this part. So nowhere in the world have governments willingly shared power. All over the Europe and USA, women and the poor have had to fight for participation in government. Had to fight for participation in government. Women's struggle to vote got strengthened during the First World War. This movement is called as Women's Suffrage Movement. As the term suffrage usually means right to vote. During the war, many men were away fighting, and because of this, women were called upon to do work that was earlier considered men's work. Many women began organizing and managing different kinds of work. When people saw this, they began to wonder why they had created so many unfair stereotypes. Stereotypes means we had already discussed this in the first chapter, that the previously made up picture for a certain category of people. Okay, like we think the tribals are very colorful, they're very backward and all this. These are stereotypes. We don't know what actually they are. They may be creative in their own way, they may be talented in their own way, they do possess skills which we don't know. So these are stereotypes, unfair stereotypes about women and what they were capable of doing. So women began to be seen as being equally capable of making decisions. The suffragettes demanded the right to vote for all women, and to get the demands heard, they chained themselves to railings in public places. Many suffragettes were imprisoned and went on hunger strike, and they had to be fed by force. American women got the right to vote in 1920, while women in UK got to vote on the same terms as men some years later in 1928. So let's resume the previous line. These representatives meet and make. Here you can see this old man voting in a rural area. A mark is put on his finger to make sure that a person casts only one vote. So this old man has come to cast his vote. Okay. The decisions for the entire population. These days the government cannot call itself democratic unless it allows what is known as universal adult franchise. This means that all adults in the country are allowed to vote, but it was not always like this. Can you believe there was a time when government did not allow women and poor to participate in elections? Yes, in the earliest forms, governments allowed only men who owned property and were educated to vote. This meant that women, the poor, the propertyless and the uneducated were not allowed to vote. The country was governed by these rules and regulations that these few men made. In India before independence, only a small minority was allowed to vote, and they therefore came together to determine the fate of the majority. Several people, including Gandhiji, were shocked at the unfairness of this practice and demanded that all adults have the right to vote. This is known as universal adult franchise. Writing in the journal Young India in 1931, Gandhiji called, "I cannot possibly bear the idea that a man who has got wealth should have the vote, but that a man who has got character but no wealth or literacy should have no vote, or that a man who works honestly by the sweat of his brow day in and day out should not have the vote for the crime of being just a poor man." So here our chapter ends. If you want, you can look at these portions by pausing the video. So what do we learn? What do we learn mainly from this chapter is, without laws, government's power to make decision is not of much use. Monarchy is also another type of government. India is a democracy from people's struggles. It is a representative democracy with elected representatives. Before independence, few could vote. Gandhiji wanted universal adult franchise for all adults to vote. Government resisted sharing power. Women fought for participation. The suffrage movement grew during World War One, where men were at war and women have to do the tasks which were earlier meant to be for only men. That is actually a stereotype. So challenging norms. Suffragists demanded voting rights, facing imprisonment and hunger strikes. American women gained voting rights in 1920, followed by UK women in 1928. So this is all about this chapter. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for more such informational videos like this.